Padgett here. We're going to talk about fentanyl. So if you see my little scribe right across the bottom of the screen right down there, you know nearly 80,000 people a year are dying from fentanyl. Now, that's pretty interesting when you consider that an average of 96,700 people die in the United States with drug overdoses each year. Now we have between 70 and 80,000 of them due to fentanyl. Now, think about that. How are we getting it into our country? Where is it coming from? And why are we not stopping it? Have you ever thought about why we are allowing this stuff to come across our border? No resistance. They willy nilly walk right on over, and it's a-okay. And if we're lucky, we might actually make an arrest. And our records are up. The numbers are up. We're 352 million fentanyl pills, and all this was in the year's time. But before that, you didn't see any of that. Why? If the more you let across that border, the more you're going to get. The less you let cross that border, the less you're going to get. It's math 101, and our government does not understand the facts that you can't allow this kind of activity. People talk about human trafficking. Yeah, absolutely. But what are they bringing with them? How are they getting it here? There were places that you couldn't cross, things you couldn't do, avenues that you couldn't take. There was fear for doing things of this nature. Now we have an open gate. Come on in, everybody. Have a seat. Yes, bring it all in. We're good. We'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. Yes, our taxpayers are here with open arms. Come right on in. In the meanwhile, we're doing nothing for our own country. We're doing nothing for our country but destroying it from the inside out. And as we allow this nonsense to continue across our borders, and you talk about the overdoses, it's pretty sad that Narcan and whatever we use to bring somebody out of an overdose, that's become a common thread of survival here in America. That it's okay to watch somebody overdose. Just pull out some Narcan, hit them, and they're back out there 4 hours doing it all over again. So many times that we see these folks come across our hospitals or across our radar, and we see this. And we go, oh, that's so sad. That's so bad. That's so sad. Yes, it is. But are we as a country facilitating this kind of behavior? I'm going to tell you we are. And how do we do that? Is because we have a government that so quickly looks the other way. And you have to ask yourself why. And many, many, many people know why. The average American knows why. And if you don't, do a little bit of research on that. You'd be surprised at what you find out on your own. But when you're talking about 96,700 people die from drug overdoses a year, and when you look at it, 70 to 80,000 of them are through fentanyl and opioids. Think about that. For years, we've heard about opioids, heroin, things of that nature. And, whether it was from the Vietnam War, from anybody out there that does not remember the Vietnam War, if you're a lot younger watching this, do a little research. Our soldiers came back, many of them, lifelong addictions to heroin, folks. Lifelong addictions to heroin. Think about that. What's the difference today than then and now? Well, now, who's the supplier of the fentanyl? Who was the supplier of heroin back then? Our enemy, of course. It is our fentanyl that's coming across this border down south, probably some through the north. Who knows where it was coming from all different directions now because we've infested with it. We've been infested with fentanyl. Again, courtesy of our own government. for whatever reason and thinks it's okay to destroy our country from within. But folks, we're a lot stronger nation than that. We're a much stronger nation than that. We know we can do better. We know that we can make a stand, take a stand. So think about that. 7 out of 10 overdoses are because of fentanyl. And can they lace things with the fentanyl? Can they put fentanyl out there and lace other drugs with fentanyl? Absolutely. How much does it take? It takes just enough that you can't even see it. And if you take it, it can kill you. Is that an overdose? Sure it is. But it's also a way of killing off our Americans. Think about this. Is that murder from other countries? Would our friends do that to us, or would our enemies? Where does it come from? Where does the liquid come? Where does all of it come from? Well, it starts in China, folks. Don't be naive to think that anybody else but China starts this. And they ship it into Mexico or to other countries, but more importantly into Mexico, where they can make it, where the cartels can deliver it, take it right straight to your door if you want to. And you think about that. When you have a foreign actor, foreign government, foreign enemy out there supplying drugs to the cartels, and the cartels walking their happy butts right across the borders, what do you think is going to happen in our country? What's going to happen to our youth? What's going to happen to our society in general? What's going to happen to the crime stats? Are we a nation in crisis? Yeah, we definitely are. And how do we get out of that? If you sit back and think, how many people that you know of, if you don't know, but how many people that you know of have a drug problem that relates back to the opioids or fentanyl? But most people don't even realize what the fentanyl is. They're coming out and somebody sees this a colored pill, and somebody tells them it's a pain pill, and next thing you know, they take it, and within seconds they're dead. That's how powerful that pill is. And when you're talking about one pill can kill one person very quickly. And this year they've had over 352, think of it, 352 pounds, 352. It doesn't matter. Matter of fact, it doesn't matter if it's a minuscule mite. It doesn't matter, folks. That's all it takes. How much do you think that would take to kill our country, our youth today? We have to invest in protecting our country. We have to invest in protecting our borders. We have no choice. If you think about it, over 1 million people have died in America since 1999, and that's a lot. That is a lot of people. It's just ridiculous that we can sit back and nobody ever does anything. Think about this. In America, and when you look at the type of crimes that we have, just in January 2021, drug overdose, you think about overdose deaths exceeded homicides by 306%. Overdoses killed more people than homicides have. Think about this. Overdose deaths totals during the period are 36.1% higher. 36.1% higher than the previous annual high from December 2018. Now, we are showing nothing but an increase. Nothing here is a decrease whatsoever. What's our future generations looking like? What do they look forward to? I'll tell you what they look forward to right now, depending on how young they are. Do you remember when they had to just say no in these drug programs in the schools? And did they work? I think for some they did. But the problem is that those programs had no clear follow-up. How do we know they worked? How did we track success? How were we able to measure the success in itself? It makes that really difficult to do because you don't know. Of course, your inner cities, your poverty-stricken areas, people, Chicago, are they going to be affected by it? Sure they are. But does that mean that the other areas in your counties or in the country are not affected by it? No, this reaches everybody. It's not discriminatory. It's not, think about that. There's no discrimination. Somebody who is addicted to drugs, and that drug being the opioids or the fentanyl. This is one of the most powerful things going today. And again, our government has just said, okay, let's do that. Don't worry about it. Let's just let it roll. Just too much going on out there. How do we fix it? Well, we let our voices be heard. That's how we fix it. And how do we let them be heard? We take our voice to the people we elect. We let them think about what they need to be doing. I said last night on the show, our biggest problem is that we have a lot of talkers, a lot of politicians that like to talk about getting there and doing things. But when they get there, we find out it's all talk. A lot of talk going on, and it's something that actions speak louder than words. You get promised a world and you don't see anything out of that. We've got to hold our politicians accountable. We've got to make sure that we send a message to them, and that when they go to Washington or they go to your state houses in your state, your different locations, places like that, that they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're doing the people's business. And that in itself is what they're supposed to be doing. Don't give me excuses. Give me results. That's the end game. We don't need excuses. We need results, folks. And how do we get that? Again, accountability. Accountability. Credibility. When you vote for somebody, check out who they are. See what they've done. Just what's their background? What's their belief? What do they stand for? Do they represent you? Do they represent themselves? Do they represent their families? And the bottom line is they're supposed to represent all of those folks in their district, their state, or their country, depending on what office they have run for. A lot of people don't realize what it takes to make legislation and how many times it has to be heard, how many times it has to be read, and what they have to do to get there. There's a lot of trade-offs, which is one of the worst things that you can do in any government is, I'll vote for this if you'll vote for this, or you won't vote for that, I won't vote for that. Or, we've got to vote for this guy's bill over there if we want his support. And what happens then, you end up with a lot of pork barrel politics. And basically, you get a lot of junk bills out there that have a little bit of what you want, but not enough of what you need. And that in itself causes the dilemma throughout our country, throughout our state, throughout our cities, our counties, our local governments, because that's how they end up doing their business. What does it take to drive a legislative body? What does it take to drive a politician? What does it take to get all this done? You the voter, you're the common denominator. I'm the common denominator. I can tell you how I feel. I can tell you what I know. I can suggest that you might want to vote a certain way, but I can't tell you how to vote, because that's what you have to decide based on what you research. If you sit there and listen to somebody tell you what you need to do, always go back out, verify, validate it. That's what we do in America. Don't let somebody just hand you a card and say, hey, vote for this person. Why? Oh, because I'm part of this special elite group and that's who we're endorsing. That's not what our vote is about. Too many times people go to vote and they don't know who they're voting for. Supreme Court justices, to be exact. Most people don't have a clue of who's running for the Supreme Court. They walk up, they see a buddy, they see a friend, they see an organization stand there, they hand them a card, they tell them to go in and vote. They don't know what they're voting for. They just were told they were handed this card and go in there and vote. They may ask who's got the D by the name or the R by the name. or who's not loyal to anybody, who's the independent in the middle, who's, that may be what they're going to do. And it really doesn't matter what the issue is. They're looking straight to the party affiliation. If you're a part of a party that you represent, and you feel that represents you well, you know where you're going with it. But if you're not well versed on the issue itself, take time to figure out what that issue is and what your position is. And then find out what the position of those people that you're walking in when you walk the gauntlet into the political arena, when you walk in there and you decide that it's time to vote. Do you have that in mind before you get there? I think a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't. I've heard people say, well, I voted this person, I voted for this person, but they couldn't tell me why they voted for that person. They felt, oh, I had to vote for somebody. Well, no, that's not true. If you don't know what you're voting for and you have no clue and you don't feel comfortable in the vote, you just necessarily want to take a shot in the dark, like you're throwing darts at a dartboard trying to hit the center X. Let it land where you want it to land? Absolutely not. That's not what we do. People are like, well, what does it matter? What does it matter anyway? They're going to do what they want to do. Well, because it matters. It matters. For hundreds of years, we've had officers, police officers. Think about this: old-time sheriffs and deputies and soldiers, part of our country's history, that have died for the right for you to vote. That is your constitutional right, just as much as your Second Amendment, your First Amendment. But your right to vote is a serious gain for what you can add with your voice for the changes. People say, well, I don't vote because I don't care. It doesn't matter anyway. Just remember, if you don't vote for one thing, it means you're voting against the other. That's just the way it is. And then you end up with the fentanyl crisis down at the border because you got a government that looks the other way. You got a government who really, really doesn't care. Just think about it. And I'm going to throw a little few stats out here, overdose deaths counts can be deceptive. Just the drug-related deaths aren't always recorded as overdoses. Some overdoses involve multiple type drugs, so it's not, they're different types. Like I said, the national overdose rate is 21.6 deaths per 100,000 residents. That's, that may not sound like a lot to some people, but if it's your child, that's a lot. If it's your daughter, your son, how about if it's your mother, your father? Is that a lot then? Absolutely. And among youth and young adults aged 15 to 24, the average annual overdose death rate is 12.6 out of every 100,000. So think about that. 12 families out of 100,000 are affected by drug overdoses. And that's a death rate. Just think about it. 100,000 people, if you want to look at it that way, 100,000 people in one city, and 12.6 families out of that 100,000 have adults between ages of 15 and 24 that have overdosed. So you're looking at the high school years to college years. And why? Could be various reasons. But what does it? It's actually that drug. And fentanyl is a big player in all this. And then the overdose rate, the death rate among the same age group is 41.9% lower than the national average death rate. And who are more than likely to do it? Men are more than twice as likely as women to die from a drug overdose. Anybody know why that is? Think about it. Men are overdosing at a higher rate. Is it because they might be more active? They're out there, they might be a little bit busier. I don't know the answer to that. I have no clue. We really don't know that answer. But folks, these are real numbers. These are real numbers. it's sad that our country is like this. And the thing about it is women are dying from drug overdoses at a slightly faster annual rate. And among 25 to 34-year-olds, the male overdose rate exceeds women by 146.8%. And I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you, but just think about it. Just if you don't hear anything else, it just gives you an idea of what's going on out there. And yes, opioids are the deadliest drug types that there is. One type of opioid is a factor in 71.76% overdose is what we talked about. What is that? That's fentanyl. Fentanyl is no joke, folks. That's the new heroin. That's the latest and greatest. Been around. Is there legitimate reasons for using that? Yes, there are pain patches and things of that nature. There's a lot of uses for it, but it's such a minuscule amount that you can use to protect yourself. It can't be overused because it becomes deadly and it's very addictive. But how many more people do you think, if you compare it to what cocaine did or used to do or can do? And opioids kill 3 times as many people as cocaine, times 3. And it's probably easier to get nowadays for what's coming across our borders. And overdose deaths rank just below diabetes or things of that nature. It's tragic. It's very tragic. We've got to do something about it. What are we going to do about it? The only thing I said we could do about it before is you got to hold people accountable. And we're not holding our government accountable. How many people out there think we're holding our government accountable? We're not. Not at all. Haven't been. Don't do it. Haven't done it for a long time. It's time to do that. And we need to hold them accountable for many, many other things. We need to hold our politicians accountable for our teachers, teaching our children in our schools. We need to hold them accountable for holding criminals responsible for their actions, accountable for what they do. We need to hold our politicians accountable for protecting society in the way that they're obligated to do. And so many times they don't. And as you see things across the world that's going on now, how are we holding anybody accountable when we let our enemies walk right through the door on us, right through the lower half of our country and right on in? Well, in North Carolina, you've got a candidate. His name is Mark Robinson. He's actually the lieutenant governor. And as the lieutenant governor, no doubt in my mind, we're going to see him at the next level as his candidacy for the governor's race. I feel very comfortable in saying that. He's not announced that, but I feel pretty comfortable. That's where we need him. That's where we want him to be. That's where he should be. But the bottom line, folks, is we got to have strong leaders. We need 1,000 Mark Robinsons. We need 5,000 in 5 states. We need 50,000 Mark Robinsons, 1,000 in each state, to get our message out, to change the way that we're going. America's in a downhill spiral right now. Can we come out of it? Absolutely, we can. But we have to have change. And what is that change going to be? It's going to come from the grassroots of where we walk, talk, shop, work, educate. It's where we are. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's where we actually get out and do the country's business, where we get out and do family business. It's getting out there and amongst everybody and letting everybody know that we are ready to step up and step out and do what needs to be done. So without further ado, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some footage here of Lieutenant Governor from North Carolina, our own Mr. North Carolina himself. It's going to be Mark Robinson. If you don't know who he is, watch this video and you will by the time this video is complete.
What law enforcement should look like in our state. You know, I've never been a type of politician to make promises. I never stood on the stage and said, I promise you that if I'm elected, I'll never do that. Except this once. Now I'm gonna tell you the promise I'm gonna make. And you know, any of y'all know me know that I believe that God is organizing my footsteps. And if God should see fit to make me the governor of this great state, if it is his will that I serve the people of North Carolina in that capacity, then I make this solemn promise. Might not be day one, might not be day two, but I guarantee you by day 3, we're gonna call a press conference. And that press conference is gonna be me, and that press conference is gonna be the chiefs of police from across the state, the sheriffs from across the state, the DAs from across the state, and I'm gonna line them up in front of me, and I'm gonna point out to the cameras, and I'm gonna tell the criminals and the thugs and the rioters and the bombers and the burners and the statue puller downers, it's a new day in North Carolina, and you will not be tolerated anymore. Law and order is back in the house, and somebody is here to stand up for these men and women in blue that put their lives on the line for us. We will no longer tolerate your foolishness, and if you don't believe me, just try it. It's high time in this nation and in this state that we stood up once again for law enforcement. The dreadful effects of what has happened since this whole era of defund the police, we're not talking about something that's just cost money. We're literally talking about something that has cost lives, destroyed lives. And it is time for elected officials to get a spine and a backbone and once again stand behind the men and women of law enforcement so that they can be proactive in what they do, not reactive in what they do. And I make that solemn promise now that that will happen. And we have another vision. We got another vision out there on the horizon. We got a vision where when a man or woman retires from Fort Bragg, Camp Lejeune, one of our Air Force bases, that they won't look for any place else to live except right here in North Carolina. That they'll want to put down roots right here in North Carolina, because our vision is that North Carolina would be the most veterans-friendly state in the nation. That all the other states in the nation would be looking at North Carolina trying to figure out how we're doing it and what we're doing. We took a big step towards that in the General Assembly this session by ending the pension on military veterans' retirements. That is a great step to take, but it is only the first step in making North Carolina the gold standard of veterans care in this nation. It is our vision to make sure that we give back to our veterans as much as they've given to us in their service. There's also another vision that we have, and that vision is this, and it's plain and simple, that when you go down to vote, number one, you have to do the same thing you have to do at the bank to withdraw some money. You have to whip out your wallet and get out your ID. There's no sense whatsoever in allowing the most sacred right under our constitutional republic, our democratic process, to not be guarded by making sure you are who you are when you go to vote. And these lunatics out here who make the argument that because my skin is brown, I'm too stupid to get a free ID to vote. We have to outright reject notions of foolishness like that. We can't be afraid to do it anymore. When people bring up those subjects, we can no longer look down on our feet and kick the dust and say, well. We have to look right at that person and say, that is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. It's nonsense. And call them out on their foolishness and tell them, how racist are you to think that black people can't get an ID to protect their vote? We get IDs to do everything. And that argument, well, it's a constitutional right, you shouldn't need a vote. You shouldn't need ID because it's a constitutional right. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Have you ever read those words? They're in the Constitution. But I have to show ID to buy a gun. And here it is. I should have to show an ID to buy a gun because it maintains the integrity of our Second Amendment. To maintain the integrity of our vote, we should have to show an ID and prove who we are before we put our names down to vote. I also see a vision when it comes to election integrity, that when you go down to vote, you have confidence in the system itself, that you have confidence in the machines that you are putting your votes into, and you have confidence in the people who are tabulating your votes. It's high time in this nation that we stop playing around with this issue. You know, in 2016, when President Trump won, the left said that Russia interfered in the election. And now, many on our side are saying that this vote was not legitimate. So here it is. We both said that the system is broken. Why don't we all get in and get it fixed, finally, once and for all? Not for Democrat or Republican, but for this constitutional republic we call America. It's time to fix this system, and it's time to stop kicking the can down the road. It's time for some of us to stand up and really put some work into election integrity. And that's a vision that I see, and I know that we can do it because we're Americans. We can do anything. All things are possible to the people of this nation because all things are possible to those who believe in God. And so, another vision that I have this vision that never again in this nation, ever in this nation, anybody on any job, any agency, anywhere, will be able to tell you as a North Carolinian that you must put some drug in your veins. The word mandate is not compatible with the word freedom of choice. It is not compatible. I likewise have a vision that when you go to your doctor, you tell your doctor, I need a test because I don't feel well, and the test comes back positive for a certain virus, and your doctor and you decide that you want to be treated with that drug that nobody wants to say the name, ivermectin, that's available to you in whatever quantity you and your doctor deem fit. In short, what I vision is a state where medical freedom exists between a doctor, a patient, and their God. And that's it. Not any government entity, not any governor, not any city council, not your boss. But you and your doctor and your family make those decisions. And that's what we need to see happen in this state. That's what we need to see happen in this nation. Those are the visions that I see for this nation. A lot of people might look and think, well, you know, a lot of stuff you said is not going to be possible. Not going to be able to get medical freedom, and probably not going to be able to do anything about election integrity. You know, fat chance on getting constitutional carry in this state. Anybody that says that, I would say this to them. You go back and you look at America's history. Go back and look at her history. I would imagine there was probably a British general standing on Bunker Hill, looking down at all those farmers and blacksmiths and preachers and common folk going, you know, mate, I don't think these guys have a snowball's chance in hell. I really don't. There was probably some Japanese in the war room who were looking at pictures of Norman Rockwell and saw pictures of flappers dancing in the 20s and said, you know, if we drop a couple of bombs on these guys, they'll give up because they don't have a fighting spirit like us. You see, people have always underestimated the United States of America. Those who would seek to destroy her have always underestimated Americans and the United States of America. But here it is. America is just made of different stuff. Americans are made of different stuff. Nowhere on this planet will you find any other nation where people are made out of the same type of stuff that we are made out of in America. The spirit of freedom that exists here, and the absolute spirit of courage to stand up for that freedom. You will not find that anywhere else on the globe, which is why all nations, when it comes to fighting for freedom and standing up for freedom, when it comes time to fight, they all turn their eyes towards the West and look towards America and Americans, because we are different. We are a good different. We're a good different because we're made of different stuff. And we have that vision. We have that vision that looks out and says, not how things are, but how they can be. And not just how they can be, doggone it, how we can make it be. And I can assure you, in 2022, Republicans in the state of North Carolina are determined to make it be so. We are determined to see these visions come true. We've done great things since 2010, but I can assure you, should we win in 2022, and we will win in 2022 on all fronts. North Carolina has just begun to see its best days. We've just begun to see our best days because Republicans have just begun to fight. We have just begun to fight. And so I encourage you to stand up and win in 2022. Let's get that supermajority. Let's send that good Republican to the Senate to do the good work in Washington, D.C. Let's send Republicans to school boards and county commissioners all across the board. Let's send conservative Republicans in every seat that they're running for. Let's wrap this state up in red for 2022. And then we got 2 years to do some great work more work under Republican leadership. And then we got 2024 coming right around the corner after that. We got a good chance, more than likely, we will get rid of President Joe Biden. Don't want to spend a lot of time on him tonight, because honestly, he's not spending a lot of time on his job. So there's really not anything to talk about. We got a good chance of getting rid of him and replacing him, quite possibly again with somebody else much better. We don't know who that's going to be yet. I suspect it's going to be the man we saw on the screen tonight, but we'll see. But here in North Carolina, we have a chance to finally be rid of old King Cooper. Actually, not a chance. He can't run again, thank God. But we certainly don't want a Cooper Point 2 and a fellow named Josh Stein. I don't know if he's going to run or not, but if he does, we certainly don't need Cooper Point 2. What we need in office is a good, strong conservative that's got some vision, to understand what the people of North Carolina want and need, and is going to fight like hell to make sure it happens. That's what we need. Now, don't start clapping, because I don't know who that could be. I don't know who it could be. I've heard a few names thrown around. I've heard a few names thrown around. But like I said, God is in control of this thing. And be his will for me to be the governor of the state, then we'll follow that will. And if we sit in that seat, I can tell you right now, we will continue to fight for all the principles that you and I believe in. We will wrap this state up in red, and we will do what is right by our forefathers, by our ancestors, by the folks that are living now, by our children, by our grandchildren, and by the generations after them, because our principles work. Their principles, their ideas fail. Let's put our principles in office and make sure that North Carolina is safe and prosperous and always wrapped up in red. God bless you all. God bless Wake County, and God bless the great state of North Carolina. Thank you.
And God bless America too. And God bless North Carolina. As you just heard Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson say, you know, we're looking pretty good for 2024 with such a great candidate. You know, Mark has represented us well, will continue to represent us well. And Mark, he's no joke. If he tells you he's there, he's going to be there. If he tells you he's going to be there, he's going to be the first one in. He's going to be the last one out. You won't be left alone. I guarantee you when the smoke clears and victory is brought to the state of North Carolina, you're going to see Mark Robinson has risen to the top in 2024. He did what no one has ever done before when he became lieutenant governor. He is the first black lieutenant governor in the state of North Carolina. And he will be our next governor. And that's a whole new campaign, and it's a whole new way to hold our politicians accountable. Facts are facts, folks. The man is on the right track. He's a train on the right track, and he's going to be our governor, and we can support that. You'll find nobody no more committed to the state of North Carolina than you'll find in him. Our children, our teachers, our classrooms, our law enforcement, as you heard him talk about law enforcement, how he's going to line everybody up. He's the man of his word. If he says he's going to do it, he's going to do it. I've seen him do it. I've watched him do it, and I know he'll continue to do it. And that's why who he is, and that's why he is where he is. Folks, we've got some bad times out here with this epidemic of what's going on with our opioids and our fentanyl and things of that nature. You know, there's so many things that are going on that we have to make a difference in, that we have to protect our children. We have to protect our communities, protect our law enforcement. I mean, we have officers that are dying with fentanyl overdoses because they're stopping cars or they're getting involved in issues of this. Sure, they're carrying around the Narcan and things of that nature, and they have to maybe 2 or 3 times, and sometimes the overdose is so strong. And what about those that have tried to break the habit and they're on their way? It doesn't take that much to turn around and start it all over again before you get to where you need to fix it. The addiction is that hard. It is that tough. You know, it is like, can we continue to look the other way because it doesn't affect us right away? But if you're out here long enough and you watch it and you see it, eventually you'll be affected by it. Somebody in your family will have an issue. Somebody in your family, a friend, a child, and it'll make you realize how close this addiction affects you and yours. Don't let that next person that dies of an overdose be someone you love. If you recognize they have a problem, help them get over that problem. Get them to the right resources. And many, many times people don't want to listen to you. They don't want to hear about what you have to say because, ultimately, you can't protect somebody from themselves. But you can try to steer them in the right direction to get them the help they need. Ultimately, it's up to them to do it. All we can do is get them in the right direction, give them the core support, the family support, friendship, the friend support. But ultimately, they have to have a want and a desire and a belief that they can do it with a strong support mechanism behind them. And bottom line is, we live in the best country in the world, and we need to keep it that way. And the way we can keep it that way is to keep this stuff away from our children and our future generations. So when the time is right, and I ask you, what will you do? Who will you research? Who will you vote for? What decisions will you make that will affect your future generations or your immediate family? What decisions are you willing to make? What sacrifices can you make or willing to make to protect your own? Give that a thought. And one more thing before we cut out tonight. I want you to remember, always be real, be safe, and always, always be ready. Because you never know when the wolf will be knocking at your door. And y'all have a great evening, a great night, and I'll see you at our next show. And we're probably going to talk about mental health and how we can make a difference there. Have a great night, great evening, great morning. Depends on when you watch this.